Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to first maybe welcome the panelists to the stage. Once they're here, I'll tell you a little bit who they are, and then we can begin the discussion. So first of all, I would like to invite to the stage Badar Aslan, lecturer at Humboldt University in Berlin. There you go. Welcome. Lukoshat Helga, CEO of EAF Berlin. Sajida, engineering student at Kiron University, that we just learned a little bit about. Sharif is actually a little bit late, I heard, so hopefully he will be coming soon. And then we also have a member of parliament, Maya Gazal Razazka, member of the parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I'm very happy also to invite Hassan Diab, the former minister of culture from Lebanon. Dr. Diab, please. Okay, excellent. We need a chair. Aha. So we'll need one moment. So I'll ask my colleagues for assistance. And while they're securing the chair, I will tell you a little bit who we have on the panel. So first of all, let me begin with Badr Asala works as a lecturer at Humboldt University in Berlin on the subject of gender and public spaces in a special pioneer bilingual course for German and international students, as well as refugees. She is also a member of the editorial staff of the Arabic department of Deutsche Welle. Asala has studied sociology and obtained a master's degree in intercultural conflict management from Alice Salomon University of Applied Sciences in Berlin. A Palestinian born in Kuwait and grown up in Jordan, Asala has traveled, lived, studied, and worked over many years in both the Arab world and beyond. So we're very happy to have you here with us, Asala. Thank you. A few words about Helga Lukoshat. Helga Lukoshat was born in 1957 in Esslingen. She studied German, political science, and history in Erlangen and Berlin. She then worked for many years as a journalist and publicist and as editor of the daily newspaper. At the Technical University of Berlin, she was involved in several research projects in the field of women's studies and a doctorate with a study on women in leadership positions. Helga Lukoshat has designed numerous mentoring and career-building programs to promote young female leaders since her work for the EAF. She directed several research and consulting projects of the EAF, and she has often served as an expert and a consultant in a variety of capacities. So we're very happy to have you here, also Ms. Lukoshat. Sajida is an engineering student at Kiron. We learned a little bit earlier about Kiron University, which sounds like a fascinating example of actually cultural diplomacy in action. She was born in 1996 in Syria. Sajida has been living in Berlin since October 2015. She's currently an engineering student at Kiron, and she's looking forward to finishing her studies and starting a professional job that will benefit her community. In addition to that, the two speakers we've already had a chance to meet, I won't do the full bios, but just say once again who they are. Member of Parliament Maya Gazal Razalika is a member of Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina who gave her keynote earlier this week. So we're very happy that you could join us for this panel. And then also Dr. Hassan Diab, who we've had a chance to benefit from in a multilateral capacity and also the keynote speech, former Minister of Education of Lebanon, and also a member of the advisory board of the ICD. We're very grateful for your continued contributions in that capacity. So ladies and gentlemen, the topic that we have this evening is one that I'm by no means an expert in, so I see my job really as more of a mechanical function here as a moderator, and I really want to limit my own contributions to allow for as many contributions as we can have from the podium as well as from you. The topic is empowering women, empowering society. And I will share with you a few reflections that my colleagues have prepared. This, similar to the last panel, was a project also that the ICD team together with the Berlin Global prepared as part of a broader effort of a project we have called Born Equal, which actually looks at this issue of inequality around the world and regarding some of the initiatives of the UN and beyond. So I'll just read a few paragraphs from what my colleagues prepared, and then I'd ask each of the speakers to please begin the panel by offering their own initial reflections to get the ball rolling. Thereafter, I would really welcome your comments and questions. We want to talk about the things that are interesting for you. We want to try the best way we can to answer questions which are also close to your hearts. The Arab world is going through a period of transition, and the population is faced with various economic and political difficulties. Women are also facing challenges, as the poor economic circumstances lead to higher participation in the job market by women. Is this a milestone for the emancipation of women in the Arab world, ? Or will the role of women continue to be considered the traditional caretaker of household and family, ? In which direction is the struggle for women's rights heading, ? And maybe I'll leave it there, because actually we have so many experts here, I don't want to go into the details which they've prepared here. And I would maybe ask us, let's say ladies first, so we'll start all the way on the right, maybe with Maya. If you could begin by offering some initial reflections regarding this issue of empowering women, empowering society, not necessarily only in the Arab world, but really beyond. Where do you think we are? I mean, for the United States, this is a historic moment. Yesterday, we are celebrating, how far they're coming. There's a lot of excitement in the USA right now regarding Hillary Clinton and how far she's come. But what is your own take? Coming from Bosnia-Herzegovina, where are we at right now in terms of also challenges, opportunities? Are things moving in the right direction, or where do you see the next real obstacles that we might, as an institution, Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, and as civil society, try to make contributions?
Thank you, Mark, for the invitation, and thank you for this interesting topic. And I must say I am grateful to be here and to see the participants, the most of them are female, and that is something that is really respectful. And thank you, Mr. Diab. He is only male participant on this topic, because in Bosnia-Herzegovina usually is that women are talking about gender equality, the men no. And actually that is something that I would say that is not a right way. Where are we moving? And I don't know, maybe it's also in Germany or Arab world also, but I think that we have a problem. We have actually in whole countries the law, gender equality law, also in Bosnia-Herzegovina, which says that we on each level. Why each level? Because the Bosnia-Herzegovina is most complexity state, I would say, in the world, because we have 13 levels of governments and assemblies, and each canton, each level has his own laws. That means that the women are discriminated on territorial basis. If you are living in Sarajevo, capital city of Bosnia-Herzegovina, that is good for women because the law is implemented. But if you are living in some other cantons like Livno, where I'm from, that means that you have no the same opportunities like the men. And I think that is actually no more discussion about do we need a gender equality law. We have the gender equality law, but we have the problem with its implementation. And what is something that frustrated me is that EU actually, and they represents in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Sarajevo, we have a very represented international community, and they are coming to Bosnia-Herzegovina to talk with us, actually to consult and advise us what should be done to implement the gender equality law. And if you see the embassies in Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have only one female representative of embassy. And I'm asking myself, you are coming to Bosnia-Herzegovina to speak about gender equality, and what is with EU, European Union, and gender equality in the EU. The statistics in Bosnia-Herzegovina says that 60% of our citizens are women, and but the most 60, yes, and of the 60% of women actually are unemployed. And 60% in Bosnia-Herzegovina, we have 60% violence against women and violence in family. And that means if I'm unemployed, that means that my partner can do everything, that he can be a monstrum and everything, and I have no opportunity to leave him or took the children and go away from him because I'm unemployed. And that is something that we need actually to have one politic on the basis with not, I would not say on the European basis, I would say with some community which is actually real for gender equality. And that is not topic only for women. We should actually include our male colleagues on each level to talk about that, because they are thinking, oh, they are only feminists. They will took us our budget or something like that. No, actually, gender equality means a healthy society in your state, and that is something that we should actually from day to day discuss and to share. And actually, the young people, new generation, should be equalized in this topic. And the most problem in Bosnia-Herzegovina is that educational system is so old. That means that in our schools, my son, Bosnian language is very rich. If you have to say a friend, you have the opportunity to say female friend and male friend. But in Bosnia and Herzegovina, everything is only on this male genus. That means that the children growing up only with the opinion the male are superior and the female are inferior. I was also a German teacher on a high school gymnasium in Sarajevo, and the most popular sentence in German to say something in German, and the student says, Mama kocht und der Vater liest Zeitungen. The father is reading newspapers, and I said to him, okay, change the subjects. And he said, how? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense if the father is cooking and the mother is reading the newspapers. And that is something that must be changed in our mentality, in our mental world. That is something that...
Thank you very much. Ms. Lukerschat, we welcome your opening reflections.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mark, and the IPD for your kind invitation. And it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and to join this panel. So you introduced myself very kindly, but allow me to admit some words about the institution I'm representing here. The ERF Berlin, it's a non-profit organization. It's a kind of think tank for gender and diversity strategies. And I would strongly support your view on gender. We are saying our mission is that women and men can develop their potential in all areas of life. Men also as caretakers, and women, of course, in economic, politics, and other fields of society. So we will not change the roles of women if we don't change the role of men. That's very clear. Nevertheless, we, as the ERF, has some programs dedicated to women, to the empowerment of women. Programs for women only, but we always have this broader gender concept in mind, and also, of course, diversity, because women are very different. We are not a homogeneous group, and men are very different. So I think that's something very basic we have to reflect in each action in each program we take. The ERF works in the field of politics. We foster political participation of women. We try to make a gender setting and lobbying for our issues. But we also work with business. That's very special about ERF. We really have these two branches, politics and business, working with clients from the public sector, like, for example, Federal Ministry for Family and Women is one of our main partners, but also with some really well-known and great companies. So just to give you a little bit background, and if you're interested in my work, please feel free to ask questions or afterwards to speak with me. So why I'm sitting here, it's more that ERF, we focus mainly on Germany or on the European countries, more, not European countries, more programs financed by the EU. But we have a very interesting international projects for nearly 4 years. We support the process of democratization in Tunisia. It's a project called Démocratie a besoin de femmes, democracy needs women. And we started in 2012, but it was a really exciting time in Tunisia, developing the new constitution. And many women organizations were working to guarantee the rights, the equal rights for women in the new constitution. And it was for me amazing to see how vivid, how powerful the civil society and the women organizations are in Tunisia. I think that's really a wonderful pool for the democracy in Tunisia. And I also observed with great sympathy that many men also joined this movement for equal rights. And for example, I read a wonderful slogan on one of these demonstrations, men of quality support gender equality. So I think this puts it in a nutshell that we need this kind of alliances. So just to give you a short impression about our work in Tunisia, We are working very closely with women's organization, and now we are preparing in different municipalities and regions of the country, also in the more rural parts, not only in the capital Tunis, the upcoming elections on the communal level. And I think that's a very, very important point, because local communities are the base of democracy, and the possibility to participate for young people, for women, from people in their different backgrounds is very, very important. Also, not only in a political sense, and then I will close my first introduction, but also if you look at the economic development. Because if you have a good transport system, good childcare facilities, if you have a good local government, you will also attract and develop a business, small and medium-sized business, or even a bigger business. And you can develop also entrepreneurship of women and men. And so I think there's a very close connection between politics, in particular local politics, and also economic welfare. And I learned by the Tunisian ambassador here in Germany. We just had a summer event, a reception at his residence, that he said there's one thing he really likes in Germany is our tradition of local self-administration, Selbstverwaltung. Yeah, so for me, it's a very, very interesting project, and working there with women's organizations, with people from the administration to prepare this elections, these upcoming elections. They will take place in March next year. So just for a first input.
Excellent. No, thank you very much for those reflections. And maybe just as a provocateur, so to speak, for Asala, before I ask you to give your reflections, I was just reminded of one of my classmates in college who became actually a very famous singer, Lauryn Hill. You all may know from the group The Fugees, really internationally top-level musician. She started an NGO while she was at Columbia University, together with me, called the Refugee Project. And Lauryn Hill's vision there with the Refugee Project, she would always say the main difference between human beings, in her opinion, was not race or gender or nationality or religion, it was access. And her point was that some people in the world have access to what they want and what they need, some people don't have access. And of course, initially she meant that in the framework of refugees, but it goes much further than that. And I think there, as we talk about gender equality, etc., very much I think it's actually that simple, in the sense, how do we facilitate access to what we want and what we need? Normally, that should be the job of actually local, national, and global governance, to try to make sure that that access is there. And on the one hand, I think that maybe simplifies the discussion in the sense, okay, it's actually that easy. We just have to make sure we facilitate access. On the other hand, of course, it's much more complicated than that in terms of really making sure that works. So, Asala, I'd love to hear your reflections on the one hand, maybe from the academic point of view, given your position at Humboldt University, also maybe the media point of view, given your work also at Deutsche Welle. What are your own reflections on perhaps this issue of access and in general, gender equality as we talk about the Arab world, the West, and beyond?
Yes, access is indeed a very important aspect. People can have access to various means and resources, but they might not have the ability to use these access opportunities. That's why I think that a lot of projects has to be taken into consideration to ensure that people not only have access, but they don't only have internet, but they also have to they know how to use it. They don't have email addresses, but they also can read and write properly in the languages in order to express themselves, and so forth and so forth. Now, in our project in the Humboldt University, we are trying to facilitate the entrance of refugees into the academic life, like in order for them to walk in the streets and to walk by a university and to feel that this institution is also available for them, in order to remove this, let's say, the academic arrogance, and to make university really available to the people who might really get use of it. At the beginning, I would like to tell you how interesting it is to start a discussion about the Arab world with a Bosnian speaker or point of view. This is really interesting because it provides a ground for comparison. Like I heard you saying that we do have gender equality, but we don't implement it. Well, this doesn't really apply to the Arab world. We don't have gender equality in order to implement it. And this has, of course, many reasons and many factors. Empowering women, empowering society. The sentence sounds logical and a matter of fact. However, achieving certain steps of empowering is a quite difficult task, and it requires decades of work and plans and policies. Social changes happen in long-term processes while seizing the opportunities offered in time of big changes, as it's happening now in the Arab world. This is why when we look at the Arab world and the turbulences it's going through, we might think that this is a good chance in order to initiate some changes. This is not as easy as we might imagine, as the fundamentalist way of thinking that doesn't really only mean religion. Fundamentalist way of thinking started conquering the heads of most of the average people in the region. This happens, of course, of many reasons. One of those reasons, looking forward to hold on the safety of the idealized heritage of religion and tradition. This fatal approach makes empowering women a more difficult goal to achieve. Women in the Arab world, as they are in many other places on earth, like as we saw in Bosnia, carry on their backs the social and economic burden of their families and of their homes. They might not be registered as regularly paid working force, but they really do most of the unpaid work, whether at home or in the field or even in the family business. The Tunisian Minister of Family and Women and Children Affairs said only 2 days ago, I think it was on Tuesday in the parliament, she said that 77% of the working women in the rural areas in Tunisia do not receive payments for their work. And only 19.3% of them have their own financial resources. Now, quoting the female minister, I'll say something about the women's political participation in the Arab world. Politics in the Arab world, and probably in the whole world, in various degrees, is a man-dominated terrain. Politics has a direct connection to power, social and financial. When we consider the poor financial situation of the women, we can easily understand their poor representation in politics. Women's political participation is mostly manipulated in times of elections and wars, when taboo can be easily broken in favor of men's interests and put back in action as soon as the situation passes by. In the shade of this grief situation, we see how the education of girls is put back, keeping the vicious circle alive of badly educated mothers raising children, girls and boys who are going to contribute to the weakness of the society as a whole. Many initiatives were launched, plans, strategies and policies with little result to speak for. I believe this is due to the lack of the holistic approach of the problem. We go and we want women to enter the labor market, but we don't really prepare the ground for that. socially, legally, and in many other aspects. And this also has to do with access. And in order to access the labor market, you have also to have the proper condition for that. No sexual harassment, enforced laws and legislations in order to protect women, as well as fair payment in the end of the day. These are some of the many factors that affect the women's and girls' position in the society, in the Arab society nowadays. I hope I was not long in my speech.
Interesting.
Well, thank you very much, Asala, for those reflections. I'd now like to go to Shajida. Please, if you could share with us your own reflections.
Hello, my name is Sajda, everybody. I think I'm, considering my age, I'm more here to be like informed and learn than to express and tell. But I will just say an experience of my working with Karen. You already know about it. Regarding recruiting students, we were recruiting, of course, both genders. And the majority were all boys coming and wanting to study with us on like educational way. So we once went to a camp to recruit students, and then we have like boys coming, and no girl proposed to sign for the university. And so I went like, I have to go out for them and see what's going on, why they're not coming. And like eventually, after talking to many girls, like it seemed they have many obstacles and problems of like, of course both genders have the problems, but they don't have the courage to at least force or go after their wants. Maybe some of them are early married or whatever. Eventually, I got one girl to recruit to study after like, I don't know, 20 guys. So it was like an experience for me to know that it is really a problem on reality, on a problem to see in society. Like the most important thing, in my eyes at least, is education. And if not as many as men's, as many as women's are proposing to be educated and get into the field of education, then it's like not so fair in my eyes. For some, like many reasons. I don't have the solution, but I'm just posing the problem. So.
Thank
Well,
you.
well, thank you for those contributions as well. And the reflections also very much on the issue, I think, very closely related also to access in a number of ways. Last but not least, Dr. Diab, you're the one other man on the panel, and we'd be very grateful for your own perspectives.
Thank you very much for this session, which I think is extremely important. There's no doubt in order to empower a society, you have to empower women. And empowering women is allowing them to reach their maximum potential in any walk of life. And I have no doubt it's much tougher for women than for men, because it's not only an uphill struggle in terms of their professional life, but also in terms of raising families and raising new generations. Unfortunately, we hear a lot of politicians talking about the rights to empower women and to allow their representation to increase in all walks of life, from municipalities to the parliament to cabinets to jobs in the public and the private sector. But I strongly believe many politicians talk but don't do. And the only way to really translate that into successful implementation is through laws. And I'll give you an example. In Lebanon, when I was in the cabinet 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we were discussing the new parliament election law. And I was one of the fierce defenders that there should be a quota. At the time, I had suggested 25% in the hope that this would pass. The President of the Republic was all strongly for it as well. Of course, many politicians in the cabinet said, why limit it to 25? Keep it open. It might be more than 50, which will never happen. But I think we have to empowering women, everybody agrees, is essential to advance our societies. As you know, most of the Arab countries, over 50% of the societies are women. And in my personal opinion, and also based on surveys that I have seen, women are more transparent, less corrupt, better managers, better leaders. You have many examples in Europe, in Germany, in England, and so on. But this is not going to happen on its own in the Arab region, unfortunately, for all sorts of reasons. I think it will only happen if we translate what politicians say into laws that will give women a minimum quota, so that they have representation in everything, from the parliament to the cabinet. I mean, we've had women in cabinets, in the parliament. We have women in the parliament now. We have women pilots. We have university presidents, but their numbers are 1%, 2%, 5%. And I believe in a man-dominated society, as is the case in the Middle East, they have little chance with I'm talking about those that are better academically and deserve to be in these positions, have less chance to reach with the current situation. Why are they better? I can give you, it's not just hearsay. As vice president of the American University of Beirut, I can give you some statistics that you can check on the internet. You look at the past at least 5 years, and you look at the graduates. There are, I think, 2,000 something students that graduate every year from AUB. And you look at the distinction and higher distinction, graduates, you'll find that over 70% of those are women. I strongly believe it's to the benefit of our societies to empower women, not just in hearsay, but through laws that provide them the minimum quotas in all walks of life. And I personally, because I strongly believe in that, I established an NGO two years ago almost, and one of the 3 pillars of that NGO is empowering women. When we invite CEOs, women in all walks of life, CEOs and politicians and women that have managed to reach the top of the ladder, and they talk to high school students. By the way, it's very true. You should invite male as well as female, because you need to make men aware just as much as women of this important needed transition. So when I see them listen to these talks, I can see their faces change, and they can be ambassadors to pass the message as well to other students. So I think there's in many cases goodwill in allowing the empowerment of women to come to realization. But to be honest, I don't think this will happen in any significant manner unless we have laws that protect that, and not laws as in Bosnia, where you have 40%, a law that says 40% quota, but there's a small trick where you have to have certain seats. So at the end of the day, they don't get 40%, they get much less than 40%. I think the Middle Eastern region is in dire need to allow women not just to be educated, which is even that in some countries is not encouraged, but also to allow them to realize their full potential in higher education and in their professional life, because many women were able to make it, and I don't see why all women cannot do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Diab. I think Ms. Lukashat would like to offer a brief response, and then I'd like to also get the input of the audience as well. But first, Ms. Lukashat, please.
I found interesting your remarks about political representation, but also in Tunisia, I've learned it's really interesting. They have a law of parity. Yeah, in the constitution, the same access of women and men to the parliament is guaranteed, or to other elected bodies. And in the election law, in the legislation for the elections, the election list has to be 50-50, represented by women and men. Nevertheless, we only have, but I think it's a strong number for the Arabian world, 30% of women in the parliament of Tunis. That is why most of the top positions in the election lists are held by men. And so, for the new elections on the communal, on the regional level, there's not only vertical parity, but also horizontal. So all parties which present lists have to provide that at least 50% of the top of the first place is held either by men or by women. And I think it's a very important idea. We also have it in France, for example, the loi de la parité. It's not thinking about a quota, but to see women and men are both citizens of a state, half-half. So don't think of a quota, think of parity, of equality, that half of the population should be represented. And that's just perhaps, I know that's not very well known also in the German public. So when I talk with German politicians, female or male, they're really astonished about that. Yeah. Of course, legislation is one point. Of course, I agree with you. And we see a gap in social reality. But I think legislation is important, because we can also refer to and say, okay, there's a gap, but let's try, yeah, to close it. And second step is really to education. I think we have this multi approach to this question of empowerment of women and emancipation of women, and of course, economy plays a very, very important role. And also Tunisia, sorry that I always refer to it because it's the country I know best, but it's really an interesting country, and of course it's maybe a kind of role model for the other countries in the Arabian world. You have more than 60% female university graduates, but also access to labor market is not it's the same degree. You also mentioned some of the figures. So there's still a lot to do, yeah. But nevertheless, I think a good legislation is very, very important, and it's worth to fight for.
May I add something? Tunisia, as we all know, is somehow an exception in the Arab world. It is one of the most developed, it has one of the most developed legislation regarding women and women's rights. And it can really be an example for many other plans in the future when we want to address the Arab world. But in a place where the parliament votes for honor killings of women, like if a man kills one of his women's family, one of his women relatives because she spoiled his honor somehow, he has a smaller or a little punishment. I don't know how many years. 2 years. He goes only to prison in 2 years. He kills a person and he gets 2 years only for that, only because she spoiled his honor. Now, a parliament in one of the Arab countries has voted for that law, and they voted against removing that law and considering such a crime against like a woman, like a human being who has been killed. And that's why many men use this law or this legislation in order to kill women and to take their inheritance. It has all to do with money. Now, one of these countries is like this. Another, when the laws allow a man to marry 4 women, regardless. Now, we are not in a religious discussion, but now you have, as a woman, you have less rights. When a man when you, as a woman, whether a minister or whatever you are, you have to travel, you have to take the permission of your man in the family, even if it was your son who's 3 years old or 5 years old. In order to travel, that means what we are talking about. We can make so many policies and so many plans as much as we want, and then we come back to the first step, or the step number 0. We don't achieve anything. We have to have a holistic approach regarding all that. When we speak about political participation, we have to consider the woman a citizen, a full citizen, who obtains her passport without asking any male permission in the world. Now, this is as a first step, of course. We have many more deeper problems regarding Arab women in the Arab world.
Oh, well, thank you very much for those reflections, but I would very much like to give the opportunity for our guests and our audience to also contribute. Before I do so, I was just curious, Sharif, are you here? Sharif here? No, Sharif was supposed to be on the panel, but I guess he hasn't made it. So in that case, let's go straight to you. As always, raise your hands, please. Briefly introduce yourself and maybe just tell us where you're from. That is also interesting. And we can take maybe 4 or 5 at least and then bring it back to the panel. Please.
Hello, so I'm Nora. I'm studying at the University of Glasgow, and I have a question to Sajida. Yes, Sajida. First of all, well done to you for making to the panel. I think you lead by example. You study engineering science, and you are a Muslim girl, and I think that is something for other Muslim girls to be inspired of or on. So I just wanted to ask you, what's your future plan? Are you planning a career in engineering science? You know, engineering half a century ago was considered to be a very manly work path. So just wondered what your plans are, really.
Excellent. Let's collect as many as we can. I think there's somebody next to you, or who else had their hands up? In the front row as well? You have to remind me, I'm losing track. Okay, so let's go to okay.
Hello, thank you very much for the topic and for the interesting discussions. My name is Yara Mualla, and I'm doing my PhD here in Berlin at the ICD. And actually, I want to highlight the concept of really not mixing between some criteria that usually we look at when we look at women and gender equality rights or women's rights and the actual situation of women in the world. I mean, sometimes we look at how many women are represented in the political life, how many women are CEOs or managers on a high level at their employments, and we see also the legislation of women empowerment and things like this. But if we look at the reality, it looks like the reality is something completely different. And as Asala Badr said, sometimes regardless of all that, the reality is something really darker, and maybe she is a vice president, but she cannot travel without the signature of her husband or father sometimes in some countries. And also, we need to look at the rate of women harassment. We need to look at the possibility for women to have a child or not, her body, rights over her body, and other things that are really sometimes misleaded. And I also want to recall on the role of the civil society in this and the awareness raising, because at the end, the woman is in control. And in our societies, we always say that women sometimes is the worst enemy of the women, because at the end of the day, she has the power to educate her children, and she is raising her children. And if she can raise them in an equal way, empower both, and put in the mind of the girl that she can, regardless of everything else happening around her, then I think we will arrive. Also, she put in the mind of the boy that he is equal to his sister, and he can't ask his sister for favors or for things, make me the food, clean me my clothes, or any other things, and then maybe we can change a mentality. And when the mentality change, then we can look at the rest of the things, and then we make real equality in the society, regardless of the indicators that are for many countries misleading. Thank you.
Yara, you do your PhD in which subject? Which subject?
I do it in cultural heritage studies and in cultural diplomacy and international relations.
I'm proud to say she's one of our students, one of the first PhD students in cultural diplomacy. I saw 2 comments in the front row here. Okay.
Yeah. My name is Amir Aziz. I'm the Imam of the oldest mosque here in Berlin. First of all, that one of the colleagues, she was saying that the situation is much darker. But we should always keep this in mind, that darkest cloud always have a silver lining. So silver lining is always there. And the best example is that I am from the country where amongst all the Muslim countries, there was the prime minister who was a woman for twice. That is Benazir Bhutto. She was twice elected prime minister. And the country where a young girl of 19 years, she was able to get Nobel Prize for the peace, Malala Yousafzai. So I mean that, there are. But that's very important when we are talking about the women as gender. Then this problem will keep on and on and on. But if we take the women as an institution, this is how we can, realize that women, it's not a gender, it is an institution. And it is said that if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate the whole generation. You know that the women even have to play their role. When they are talking about it, I just give you one example in that where I was, a brother and sister used to come to us for some teaching, and she said the girl was complaining of her mother that when I wanted to drink milk, the mother said, "Go away. It's not for you. It's only for your brother." So, when a mother is going to say, it means she is going to discriminate herself. First of all, here she has discriminated that, no, this milk is not for you. It is only for your brother. You go and you take whatever, because you're a girl, so you don't have nothing to do. I mean that, the women also, they have to realize what the duty they have. Now, as an institution, all these men we are sitting here, our first education came from our mothers. If they would have taught us what, then today we have not been here. Maybe that we have been somewhere else saying that how the women, they can even talk to the women, to the men. I mean that, the women themselves have as an institution, they should realize that when they are mother, and they are the one who are bringing up the children, and if the child at the end says that, oh, you are inferior to me because you are a girl or you are a woman, it means that then there is also the flaw in the upbringing of those people, and the mothers of that country should realize this thing. They have the chance. A child is grown up for almost 15 years in the hands of mother. And suddenly that boy, why he starts saying the same thing? Because the mothers have the same ideas as well. They think, oh, no, she's a girl, she'll go to some other house, she will get married, she will not be of any use for me. This is how we have to change. Change the ideas that you are an institution. And an institution, through institution we can learn. But only from the gender, then we can have only interaction, and as an institution, women will, then we can make a very good combination, and we can learn a lot from them, and we can get all this. But women also need to think about it, that they are bringing those men who are discriminating them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we have a lot of reactions for the many comments that were here, but let's continue. You've been waiting patiently here in the front. Okay, ladies first, if we can, and then we'll come back. Please.
I think that's a problem as well. With the ladies first, it kind of places women.
Discrimination.
It does, and that's the thing that I'd like to point out, that I feel women in the field of feminism and in the field of academia, and I think you're sitting right here and you're a role model, but the problem is in the discussion and in the way we represent ourselves. We victimize ourselves in the discussion, and I think that downplays from our argument. By not using the word feminist or using the word feminist, I think it's very vague within the field. And as a Muslim, Arab female, I can travel anywhere I want. I can do anything I want, and I have that liberty. And I know many others in this room and further that can do the same. And by sitting here, and this is what happens, people that from a point of privilege, that I think everyone in this room is coming from, we misrepresent women, especially in the Arab world. There are outstanding women in the Arab world that we fail to recognize. And this is women's fault, this is men's fault, and we cannot keep blaming one gender and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm being victimized, I can't do this. We have to stop discussing gender in this confined space and take action. And I think that's what I like to do, is that represent myself and be the different person, but not engage in a conversation that's already so limiting. And the limitation comes not from the person I'm arguing with or discussing with, but from myself. And that's what I've seen repetitively by female academics in the field, especially when discussing the Arab world.
Where are you from?
I'm half Yemeni.
Half Yemeni.
Yeah. And that's surprising to many. And I understand my background has enabled me to stand here and speak in this language. But as well within Yemen, and I know that's a country that women almost have no rights. But despite that, we had a Nobel Peace Prize winner as well from Yemen, and she kind of led the revolution. And although maybe my opinions and hers differ, she's still a female, and she still did make change. And there are so many like her that are not represented. And I think sitting in this room and having this discussion should be taken in a different light. We should instead empower ourselves, and the word empowerment we have to be very careful with, because I don't need any power to come to me. I already have the power within me, and I don't need for a male institution or a male-dominated institution, whether it's politics, a culture, or my house, to realize that power, and I think that's where we're failing in the discussion. So, yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. And now we'll come over here. I think they're over here. Well, I'll give you guys a chance now. I think this is the last one, and then we'll come back to the panel. Sorry about this, but I want to make sure as many voices are heard as possible. Please.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Guido Mattis, political scientist here in Berlin. Two things I found interesting. First, Sajida, this example of going to this one camp and sort of mustering refugees who would be interested in pursuing something at university level, Kiran University, and then finding 20 men and only one woman. I hope this is not representative of the overall refugee community, or not even largely representative, because as has been indicated, I mean, as far as quality goes, in the American University in Beirut, you have women dominating, and even Iran, to my knowledge, you have more women students than male students, even with the mullahs. So we hope to get a better sample here with the refugees coming to Germany. A second thing is when it comes to opening tertiary educations in Germany for refugees, of course we have to avoid red tape. Of course, some real refugees will not have been able to bring documents showing all their achievements, etc. But on the other side, with some of the German enthusiasts, I sense the idea that everybody who has done somehow 12 years of education in the Arab world should be considered as apt to be a full student, not just a guest student, but a full student. And there seems to be some cases where youngsters who have been given assurances in this direction, were quite disappointed when they noticed that, of course, not everybody can manage at the real level at German universities. So my question to you from the American University of Beirut goes, how do you make sure that amongst your students you really have that level? Obviously you can buy certificates, you can, but also the overall level seems to be lower, because there have been some countries involved in international comparative studies as to the level of mathematics and sciences, and so the general sense seems to be that in average in various Arab countries people would be 3 years or 4 years back with respect to Western European levels at age 18 or at age 16 when it comes to knowledge in comparative studies of student achievement. How do you manage to have a high standard? Of course, taking into account that you will sometimes have to accept people because they have rich parents in order to pay your salary, etc. How do you make sure that in this Arab involvement you get high standards? And what could we learn in Germany when it comes to accepting, without red tape, but with regard to standards, the students that are knocking at our doors?
Thank you very much. I think we are technically out of time right now, so I think also there's a lot of feedback that we want to have from the panel. So I do think, or maybe okay, I don't want to cut you off. You had raised your hand. All right, so final comments, and then we'll come back to the panel. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Ibrahim from Iraq. I want to talk about the women's quota that my friend talked about. The 25% about women's quota. I think that's not working well in our country, because this system put it by Sant Ligo. He's a professor from Norwich. Because the loss of a lot of part that we'll have in our country, such as Iraq, you have 130 part. Each part push a woman to take a chair in the parliament, but they don't looking good. Sometimes there is no education, no culture. Just he want to take the chair at the parliament, and the women will become to parliament. The man crush her. There is no sound for women in our country. This system, not in Lebanon and in Iraq, most of the Arab country and the Middle East working it. I think it's no good. Maybe we're thinking to find another way, such as I suggest for Iraqi parliament to make parliament for a young man and women like Sajida, or to hear the sound clearly. And I think the women in Iraq, about myself, I talk. I think there is no women in our parliament.
Thank you very much. I see hands waving there, hands waving here, but I really do need to cut it now, not only out of respect for the panelists who want to speak, but also out of respect for the performer this evening. The Oriental Evening is being led by a Moroccan woman, Miriam, who's a very well-known musician, and I know she has to also prepare the stage and everything for that. So we do have to bring it back to the panel now. Since there was a small critique of my lady's first comment before, this time we'll do the opposite. Dr. Diop, I'd like to begin with you for the concluding remarks for the panel, and then we can go maybe from left to right this time, the opposite of before. But please, Dr. Diop.
Or cycle equality, the other way around.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have to answer two questions over there, but before I do that, I want to congratulate this lady for saying what she did. Yes, I think we should also celebrate success stories of women. There are amazing women in the Arab region, in the MENA region, that have done nothing short of an amazing role in many walks of life. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but for example, the first female House of Speaker in the UAE was elected almost less than a year ago, Dr. Amal Qubaisi. who was the head of ADEC, Abu Dhabi Education Council, which is basically Minister of Education. So there are many success stories. There are amazing ministers in Sultanate of Oman. Our friend has left, and others. But going back to your question, I would love to see a 50-50 quota, in basically laws that pass through parliaments. But this is not going to happen. I mean, let's face it, it's a fact. So rather than have 2%, if I can guarantee a minimum of 25%, this was just a recommendation. It never even passed, in the cabinet. But I need to see minimum guaranteed. When you put your investment in a bank or in a portfolio, you want minimum guaranteed. And I want minimum guaranteed role for women. It doesn't mean they cannot reach 80%. This has to be somehow integrated, because it's my opinion, it will never happen unless we do that, at least in Lebanon. So I don't speak about, Tunisia is a very special case. There has been gender equality many, many years ago, and of course I congratulate Tunisia for being the leader in this area in the Arab world. And as far as the first question, the other question regarding quality, it's a very diverse, the map, the higher education arena in the Arab region is a very diverse picture. So we have, the AUB is one of the best in the region. It's, according to QS ranking, it's about 250 in the world, so it's highly competitive. And how do we ensure quality? It has institutional accreditation from Middle States, the top accrediting body for institutional accreditation. We have accreditations for each and every program. Only a few days ago, it was announced we're the first in the region to have accreditation for our residency programs in the medical school. We're the #1 medical school, the top engineering school. So this is AUB. Okay, so I don't think we need to talk about quality for AUB graduates. Now, if you're talking about the Arab region, for what? Selection of students. Selection of students come on its own, because the number of male and female students that apply, high school graduates, to universities are almost the same. And the number of, as it happens for AUB, the number of students that are accepted on a clear-cut criteria, academic criteria, which is based in our case on SAT scores, on grade 10, grade 11, GPAs at high school. So the ones we select are the best academically. And as it happens, they're about 50 female and 50 male. The same for graduation. They're about 50% male and 50% female. But it's obviously not the same across the almost 1,000 universities in the 22 Arab countries. Even more rudimentary than that. And this is part of our problem for decades in the region. The curricula in higher education institutions are archaic. The higher education liberal arts model requires breadth as well as depth in the specialization area. The breadth, which includes soft skills, are essential for success in the future. These 21st century skills are not even touched in 95% of the universities in the Arab region. And you get a lot of weaknesses that are essential for the marketplace. Now everything is internationalized, so you need to have good communication skills. You need to have good skills in humanities and social sciences, in languages, analysis, synthesis. You need to have critical thinking. All of these are embedded in the courses you take as a breadth. And I mean, when I did my PhD in England and master's, it was all in the specialization area. I'm a computer engineer. So these days, somebody that's taking a BS in computer science at AUB or any of the universities that use this liberal arts higher education model would require the general education component. This breadth is 30 credits. That's a third of the 90 credit BS program, 30 credits just for the breadth. This is how important this component is for the success of these graduates. So there are many facets to this that basically have to be considered, and this requires the political will at the cabinet level and at the ministries of higher education level. And I don't think that will is there, personally, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diab, and I also want to echo your comments about Yara, who I'm also proud to say is one of our graduate students at the Center for Cultural Diplomacy Studies in the field of cultural diplomacy. But let's continue. So Judah, please.
Yeah, I had her question. Thank you for the question. It's about what are my impressions for the future and what I want to do and so on. Actually, like you said, I think it is the engineering field is so much specifically male track or something, like that's what at least they tend to say. But in my eyes, like I didn't, like when I choose the engineering, I didn't have this idea, to be honest. I didn't say, oh, this is more male track or whatever. I just fall in love with the exact idea of not mechanical. Well, I'm studying with Cairo mechanical engineering, but my my will is to be more at the like civil and structure engineering. So it was like just the idea of having a huge imagination of building or structuring buildings and so on had my like interest, if you know what I mean. About my plans, I would be really happy if I could finish like the 4 or 5 years of engineering studying and go back to Syria and help there. I hope it's safe here by then to go back to Syria and help them with trying to help with building it at least. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Asada, please.
And one thing he asked about like the percentage of male and like it's really not true, because even if you want to consider the amount of males coming to like as a refugees, it's much more than women in general. So you can't put this as a specific number. Yeah, but in general, even like for Karen, it's not more than 30% females studying with Karen. So it's still like it's a good percentage, consuming all the males are and all the percentage of males in the country, in Germany in specific. But I think still like it needs more. Thank you.
Okay. Asada, please.
Now, I really appreciate your positive approach to the whole issue, and I'm sorry if I seem to present the Arab women as a victim. No, of course there are great Arab women, and this cannot be denied. But we are speaking now about empowerment, not about great Arab women who really reached there. You are half Yemeni, you can go and travel and work and do whatever you want. I am a whole Palestinian. I'm not half anything. And I can work and go and do whatever I want. But we are not talking about me and you. I don't need to victimize a woman who's been stoned because she dared to drive a car. I don't need to victimize a woman or a child who's been married in 5 years old and dead afterwards. I don't need to victimize women all over the world because they are being used. Now, there is something in the United States of America, and it's mostly applied on black people, and it's called affirmative action. And there is a huge discourse about it, whether you are with or without it. Is it positive discrimination? Is it against? Quota falls also in the same category. But now, regarding women in the whole world, not only in the Arab world, their grim situation has been going for decades. And we don't really need to point out how really disadvantaged they are. I wish the people, the women, could just say, like, I don't accept that, just go to hell and I'm going to do my work. In this case, we have to go to your idea of access. They know, they see people like me and you and other people, people who took a Nobel Prize by foreign institutions, not at home. Nobel Prize is never given at home. It's given by foreign institutions for political reasons, and it's not really any kind of measurement. But they see these people and they really would like to be like them, but they don't know how. We are talking now about how. We are not victimizing anybody. On the contrary, we would love them to be like you.
I think, like you're true, but her point was, as I understood, is to stop talking about always the problem, and everybody is like, for example, the war in Syria got even worse after all the media and all the focusing on the issue, on spotlighting things. We should do more of fixing, like each by one, instead of just always having to point at the problem, so on, and then nothing. I think so.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue, Ms. Lukashev.
Yeah. I would do some remarks on the questions concerning the role of mothers. Of course, each of one is responsible what he or she is doing. And by the way, it's not only mothers, it's also the obligation of fathers to raise their children in a fair and equal manner. So, but how to change mentality? I'm with you. Of course, it takes a long time to change mentality, and it's a basic. But how will we reach it? And I think we really need politics to set another institutional framework and another framework of legislation. One example, here in Germany, for many decades, only I think 3-5% of the young fathers took parental leave. Then after a long fight of female and male politicians, we achieved another legislation, and now parental leave is better paid. It has other institutional framework. Now we have 30% young fathers going into parental leave. Not as long as women, okay. But nevertheless, you see, it's influencing. It's a vice versa process. So I'm really encouraging women to go into politics because we can influence decision making, which influences institutions, and on the long run, also, of course, mentalities and cultural patterns. And I'm really convinced, and that's I think it's near what you have said. we need good practices, and we need an exchange of good practices, of legislation, of policies, of NGOs, and of course also of individual role models, yeah, to encourage us to learn from each other in a very open way. And I have to say it once again, I really love this project in Tunisia because it's really mutual, yeah, to learn from each other. And to see differences, of course, different experiences, but also to see what we have in common and where we have perhaps also common interests, yeah, as women and as men who are interested in equality. So I only can encourage this kind of cultural and political exchange, yeah, to really be open-minded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Maya, you have also now the privilege and the responsibility of the final concluding remarks.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, the last comment of the colleague in the front was that we have women in some parliaments. They are only sitting there because the party pushed them to sit there and to talk about nothing or don't talk and everything. But you are actually focused only on women. Actually, I have also female colleagues. I never heard the sound of their voice, but also I have 30% of my male colleagues, I never heard the name of them. No comments, nothing. That means that the whole society is talking about quality or qualification of women. And nobody is talking, are the male politicians qualified to be politicians? Nobody is talking about that. And that is actually the changing of perception. And I think after this session, you will also focus yourself on male politicians, and you will see they are also quiet, and they are actually only hearing what the party leader is saying, nothing about what is their opinion. I can actually not agree with the colleague, young, very successful young girl from Arab world, and why? To compare, I'm now politician, I have good income, and I don't care why the other women in the world are not or are underrepresented or have no participation in their country. That is actually too egoistic stuff for me, and I cannot agree with that. I think also that, I hope that you will change your opinion about that, because how many female Nobel Prizes do you know? 2, 3, perhaps. But male Nobel Prizes, I can from my country at least 3 or 4, but female, 0. And that means that we have no the same opportunities. And I cannot be now in parliament and sitting there and in my society, the opportunities for females are actually in your situation now. You are student PhD. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's not possible to go to PhD if you have a child or something like that, because you have no society support, you have no enough kindergarten places, nothing. You actually are the slave of the society. You must stay at home and be with the child, and child would grow up only with the women, because that is logical and naturally. That is not naturally, and that is not logically. And if the child is growing up only with mother, his opinion will be the mother must stay at home and the father is going to work or to bring the money to home. And I can also tell you example, I have one child, he is totally normal. But in Bosnia and Herzegovina, yes, normal, when I say normal, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have huge percentage of child with disabilities. And if you are now young and you get a child and this child will be born with disabilities, you must quit with whole your life before. Why? Because the law is not recognizing these child. And I'm asking myself, should I now only stay in politics and be quiet and say, I'm free, I can travel, I have good income, I don't care. No, you must be actually the voice of these people who have no opportunities to get the chance to change the things on better way. And participation, possibility, rights, changing mentality, that is something. Changing mentality is hard work. How can we change? Only through educational system. Only through educational system. Because in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also in other countries, we have an army, each year army of young people who doesn't know what is gender. They doesn't know what is gender-sensitive language. They don't know why should male and female colleagues, why they should have the same opportunities. And that is actually, that can be only changed through the school books and through the media. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, media are, they depend actually on political parties. So if you are sitting in front of the TV, you are actually only bombed with the common stright. Discussions, political discussions, and nothing is about education discussions, what should be changed, what is the statistic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, how this situation can be solved, or how is the practice, which are the practices in the EU or in other countries. And that is something that failed in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. Thank you. The problem is, as I said, we're already now a half hour late, and I really do think out of respect of the performance that's about to come, we really do have to conclude now. I'm sorry about that. This could go, I want to continue it, but I also know if I do that, I will also be disrespecting the next part of the event. So I apologize for that, but I don't want to end the discussion. I just want to end it in this format, because afterwards, let's stay together. We have a reception. We also have the wonderful Oriental evening. So that would be my hope, that we've inspired a lot of discussion that will generate this evening, as well as beyond that. And maybe just as a brief way, I actually have the task now of concluding this panel, but also the conference. This is actually the final academic component of the conference before the cultural component. I was reminded of an anecdote, actually a story that took place here in Berlin that I think is an interesting anecdote to maybe conclude this panel as well as the conference. It's actually a story about Albert Einstein, the great Albert Einstein, speaking of geniuses and individuals who made major contributions, who also taught a course, if I'm not mistaken, at Humboldt University. And he was there at Humboldt. It was a graduate seminar at the end of the semester, and he was giving the final exam. And this is a true story. And at that time, of course, with Professor Einstein, there was much more formality in the classroom. Typically you would address the professor, doctor. You'd be wearing very often a suit and tie. It was a much more formal situation, classroom setting. So just put that in your minds. Professor Einstein began the exam, to distribute it to the students, and about 5-10 minutes into the exam, something very rare happened. One of the students raised their hand. And normally you don't ask questions in the middle of an exam. So suddenly people are whispering, what is this? Interrupting the exam. Professor Einstein was reading in the front of the room. He noticed the student and acknowledged the student, please, what is the question? And the student was a little bit shy and got up, was holding the exam with a puzzled look in his hand. And he said, Professor Dr. Einstein, excuse me for interrupting the exam, although I was looking through the questions in the exam. And if I'm not mistaken, these are the same questions that you asked last year in the exam. Was there some mistake? Is this the wrong exam? And suddenly everyone's whispering, could it be that the great Professor Einstein had made a mistake and asked the same questions twice? Professor Einstein sat back in his chair, had a small smile on his face, and answered the student and said, you're correct. These are the same questions that we asked last year on the exam. This year, however, the answers are different. Continue taking the exam. And I'm thinking of that with this panel, but also the conference itself. To be honest, most of the questions we asked just now, and also in this conference, aren't new. These are actually challenges we've had a long time. These are questions we've been grappling with for a long time. But I think what we noticed in this panel, and I'm hoping what we noticed throughout much of the conference, the answers have changed. We've had a lot of new insights, a lot of new perspectives. The goal, of course, of us as an institute is to try to really constantly surround ourselves with different perspectives. Our goal is not consensus. Our goal is not that we all agree, but that we at least hear the other side. On the one hand, we had the Arab world, we had the European world. Almost every continent was represented in this conference. I'm proud and grateful to say. And I wouldn't say every field, but definitely it was interdisciplinary, which was also really important, whether it's an engineer, a professor, a journalist, etc., that we can, again, force ourselves to think things through from another point of view. And that would be my hope for the participants and everyone who's here, that not necessarily that we've changed your mind about this or that, but hopefully that you think a little bit differently about the one issue or the other issue, and we can continue the discussions in the framework of this evening and hopefully beyond. I hope that we've really made relationships, friendships, partnerships during these few days that will actually be sustained. And in the end, as was said in this panel, we need action, not words. So I hope very quickly we can actually translate these ideas, translate these insights into action in our own communities, in our own countries, in our own institutions. And that's, I think, the responsibility that we all have, whether we're men, whether we're women, no matter where we're coming from, in our families, in our jobs, in our daily lives, to see how do we translate this responsibility, which is a responsibility. Not everybody comes to ICD conferences. Not everybody, unfortunately, is interested in cultural diplomacy. Not everybody is interested in these issues. And that's our job as well, to think how can we really expose these issues? How can we try to involve those who maybe wouldn't normally come on a Friday evening with these temperatures to stay here in a concentrated way for really this discussion myself I thought was fantastic. I myself definitely benefited in many ways. And also I would like to just take the occasion to express my gratitude to all of the speakers and the participants for the last few days. This was really, at least from my point of view, tremendous. I learned many new things. I made many new friends. And I really hope that is something similar happened with you as well. And I'd also like to thank, of course, the entire ICD team, all of the interns, all of the staff, all of the volunteers, all of the students, everyone. This was definitely teamwork. A lot of the work you probably didn't see here in this room, but just so you know, there was a lot of work behind this. The preparation for this panel, which was not my preparation, but my colleagues Orkan here and the others I'm looking at. So really thank you again to everyone. I won't begin mentioning names because then it'll never end, but really this was a big family effort. So thanks to everyone. And maybe we could do a round of applause for the participants of this panel, first of all, to express our thanks for them, for their contributions.